Can you hear me? Awesome. Do we know if Amherst Media is up and ready to roll?
Yes, they're on, and I think we're all set. Let me just confirm really quick.
Thank you.
My camera says it's on, but I can't see my face. Can anyone see my face? Yeah.
Yep.
Tried logging off and logging back in, and it still is not recognizing my camera.
We're ready. And let me know when you're ready for me to record and start streaming.
All right. 2 seconds. That's up. Yeah. We can roll.
Okay, give me a second.
Ben, before we start, a few logistical things.
All right.
Sasha, could you mute your audio? And Anna, it doesn't, you can keep your camera off, but if you click on the 3 dots at the bottom and then go to settings and then click on the video tab, you might be able to like choose the camera, or maybe it's pulling from the wrong camera or whatever.
It says camera.
Around the room and take a roll call attendance vote, I guess we'll call that. We'll start with Anna.
Anna here.
Like it. Sarah Bess.
Sarah Beth's present.
Peter.
Peter present.
Jennifer.
Jennifer present.
Irv.
Irv present.
Allison.
Allison present.
Tillman.
Tillman's present.
And Tom. You're on mute still. There we go.
Tom is here.
I like it. And Ben present. All right. So first up, we have an executive session on the agenda, but I don't think we need that. Is that accurate?
If I could,
Go ahead.
I spoke with Mark Terry. He said generally what happens is you go to executive session, formally vote relative to the contract, then you come back to open session and report on that vote.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So that being said, the Regional School Committee will now consider entering executive session in accordance with the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct collective bargaining sessions and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation of APEA if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, and to approve minutes in accordance with Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22, in the intention of returning to open session. That was in there wrong. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Jennifer?
Well, I guess I heard what Doug said about what Mark Terry said, but I don't really understand why we vote in executive session and then come back and report on the vote. Like, I think for the APAA contract, if memory serves, we went into executive or we had the option to go into executive session in case anyone had any questions, any of us had questions. And then we came back and voted in open session, I think. I'm just questioning why we need to go into executive session.
Mhm. Does anyone else have any input? Any thoughts either way? Anyone have a compelling argument either way here? Tillman?
I'm not sure what exactly we're discussing in the proposed executive session, but my understanding is that the purpose of executive session is to maintain a appropriate basis for negotiation should that come up, and therefore not discuss everything publicly. But I might be wrong in terms of what we're actually going to discuss in this particular meeting. But in general, I think that is the purpose of executive session.
Right. Right. And I mean, Allison, and I guess, and then Sasha.
Yeah, I think Tillman's comments. I mean, in addition to the clarification that Doug provided from our attorney, we use executive sessions to discuss negotiations, so that we're not openly discussing our strategy with regard to contract negotiations in public. So that is one purpose of executive session. I don't know that we had advice from our attorney for the prior votes, and I honestly don't remember how we did the last. I actually recall the last APEA contract that we did vote in executive session. It was early on, but that's neither here nor there. I sort of go with our advice of our attorney.
Hmm. All right, so we should take a vote then. I don't think it's been seconded.
Has someone made a motion?
Yep, that'd be me. And it's seconded. So I'll take a roll call vote then. Kind of move this along. Irv, Sasha, you have something?
I apologize for that. Before you go into executive session, are you guys going to move into a separate room, or do I need to open up a new Google link for you to have a private meeting that isn't streamed or recorded?
I think previously we just didn't record it. Is that how that worked?
I thought we weren't going into executive session.
We haven't voted on it yet.
Oh, we're voting on whether to go into executive session. Okay.
Right.
So until we vote, that question that Sasha asked is vote first.
Okay.
Right. All right. So we'll take a roll call vote. Anna,
Yes, I guess. I.
all right. Sarah Bess,
Sarah Beth, aye.
Allison,
Allison, aye.
Jennifer,
Jennifer, no.
Peter.
Peter abstain.
Oh, right. Only category. Tillman,
Tillman, aye.
Tom,
Tom, aye.
Irv,
Irv, aye.
and me, Ben, I. So the motion passes with 7 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. 7-1-1. So I think I have this accurate that we just stopped streaming.
That's it.
Yeah. Is that a possibility, Sasha? No, go ahead, Tillman.
Didn't we just change the motion to say that we would come back to open session afterwards?
Right, in which case we would go back to streaming again, and then we would be back live.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem.
So I can stop streaming and I can stop recording. I'm just not sure if Amherst Media is streaming live, if they will be able to stop and start the way we do. So I have to check in with them.
Okay.
1 minute, please.
Ben, I have a little icon on my screen with a message in it that says, visitors are in this meeting.
That would be Paul Bockelman because he's not part of the ARPS email.
And it's being recorded, being streamed.
It might just be easier if I send you all a separate link, leave this recording, and then you guys can return to this. Do you mind if I do that real quick? All right, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, so that's what I'm going to do.
Is that going in the chat or to our email?
I'm going to put it in the chat, and then I'm just not going to allow anyone who's outside of the organization to join us if they are not Paul Bockelman. Does that make sense?
The chat is public, I think. No.
Yes.
So,
but they wouldn't
So
be
I-
able to join unless I invite them, unless I accept them in, and I will not in the executive session link.
So I don't know about Google Meet, but at least on Zoom, if you can't enter another meeting if you're in a meeting. So if it comes in as a link, you won't be able to click on it. You'll have to copy it and then paste it into your browser. Or you might want to copy paste it somewhere else,
Yeah.
just in case no Alex is saying no.
We've done it. We've done it.
no,
Yes,
yeah,
you-
but actually, I was raising my hand because we have to all remember to close this link.
Yeah.
Like click on the new one, but then come back into this one to close it. Otherwise, we'll be broadcasting
Both. I mean,
our executive session in both places. So
you could technically like shut off cameras and mics, but it's probably easier to close out than.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the information's in the chat when you guys are ready.
Got it.
So we should leave the meeting and then go to the other meeting?
Yes, that is correct.
Bye.
Mr. Fanning, can you hear me? Tom?
Hello?
Oh, yes. So you need to log out of this meeting, but in the chat, you'll be able to see the link for the new meeting that you will be joining. So you have to click that and log out of this one, if you will.
So there's nothing in my chat. Hold on. There's nothing in my chat, but there was a link in there before.
Yes, there should be a chat inside this meeting, not in your Gmail, in this one.
Yeah, I'm not. If I click on the icon that says chat with everyone,
Yes.
there's nothing in there.
Okay. So this is what I'm going to do. If you open your email address, I'm going to send you a chat to your email address. This one, this school committee one, and see if you receive it that way.
Okay.
There. Did you receive it?
Yes.
Okay. So now log out of this meeting and join that one.
Right.
Okay. He's disappeared. Oh, yeah. Sorry, wrong meeting. You have to go back into the other one.
You know,
Mm-hmm. He's locked out of the old one. Now I'm just waiting for him to pop up here. Sorry, still wrong meeting. muting myself now.
All right. Do we have to do anything to get? Is Amherst Media still rolling? How does this work?
I'm waiting for them to confirm. I just let them know that we have returned.
Okay, thank you. So just point of clarity, we discussed the vote now? That's what we do?
I think you just have to report it in open session.
Yeah.
They're still here and they're ready.
All right. We are back in session. Do we need to take another roll call vote or?
No.
We're still in session, right? So. All right. So do we report the actual vote itself, like how it passed? Okay. That's accurate? I'm seeing head nods.
I don't know whether you have to officially announce the vote or just that it passed. I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Irv? What do you got?
We're in public session, so I assume that we can announce that what the vote was and then leave this.
Okay, Allison, go ahead.
I think it's sufficient to say that we ratified the contract.
Right.
All right. It's okay. It's okay. Yep, so we are back in public session. And Peter, go ahead.
So, I mean, now that this is all over, just a couple of quick things I wanted to note publicly for the future. One is, if my back of the napkin schedule estimating is correct, if the next contract, if we take as long as we did this time, which was almost 2 years, and we want to finish the next contract before it goes into effect, then we need to start the next negotiation process this fall. And I'm going to guess that people don't want to do that. Either I'm just going to speculate that anyone involved in negotiations, that would be undesirable to kick into high gear a full negotiations process a few months from now. And so if we're not going to do that, then it would seem that school committee and union leadership needs to informally talk with each other and pledge to a more expeditious process. And I think specifically that means starting earlier, a commitment to meeting more frequently, and resolving and committing to a negotiation method or approach much earlier. If we can pledge to agree to that, then we can get the process done in a more expeditious fashion. But if we just avoid it and we just hope for the best, I'm concerned that we're going to have this body and future and the public go through the same process that we just did. The second note I would say is that it's hard not to look at this contract and be concerned about the cost implications. We talked a lot this past school year about the fiscal cliff, about how our expenses are continuing to increase at a rate that exceeds the rate of our funding, which is essentially flat at the state and has been about 3% for local funding. And we no longer are going to have the use of ESSER funds starting FY25. So we're, unless something major changes, we are likely, in my estimation and view, looking at easily 6-figure budget cuts and reductions, and people are going to lose their jobs next year and the year after that. And we've talked also a lot about how our biggest cost by far is staffing. And so when you increase the cost of staff, it means that more people are going to lose their jobs than if you had a contract that didn't cost as much. I just want to put a pin in that because we're going to have Spotty's going to have very hard decisions to make 7 or 8 months from now, and increasing the cost of our largest cost center is a notable development in that fiscal picture. I think the last thing I'd say is that I hope public behavior is better next go around for this process. There was a lot of rhetoric over the course of the year, highly critical, I think, expressed in many inappropriate ways at times. The school committee doesn't care, that our member towns don't care, that they don't value education. There were demonstrations outside of negotiations as our school committee members walked into negotiations with people literally screaming in their faces. We had an APEA Instagram account mocking school committee members who have kids in the district. We have teachers criticizing the school committee contract negotiation position to their students in class. And as we know, some of these classes include the children of school committee members. So none of those things are pro-teacher, pro-union, pro-education. We can agree to disagree on the implementation, but if we all don't work together to focus on what's actually going to improve the fiscal situation, which is working with our state representatives to fundamentally increase the equity of state funding. And we've talked ad nauseum about how inequitable it is to our kinds of districts, and especially the millions of dollars that we lose to charter schools and the union jobs that we lose to charter schools. So I just hope that attitudes are different next time, regardless of what the bottom line value is that people want on the contract.
All right. Allison?
Yeah, I think I share the sentiment about starting early and committing to early work and frequent meetings, and sort of enabling the space for what I'm sure will be, again, difficult conversations, given a lot of the budget things that Peter just alluded to. I just want to clarify, though, that it wasn't 2 years, because we waited 3 or 4 months to get started until January. So the school committee wanted to get started in September, October. So that's the normal time frame to start in sort of September of the year before your contract expires. But we didn't get started until January. So just to be clear, it's been a year and a half. But I think that just underscores your point, which is we should be starting earlier than that, than 6 months before a contract is due. And I share many of the same concerns about sort of the future of and difficult decisions in upcoming budget years. And nobody's disputing that our staff don't deserve the pay that we're offering in this contract, and more. I think what it comes down to, though, is what we're struggling with is the balance and the weighing of things. It's not a sort of endless bucket, and so the hard decisions to come when we make commitments like this really are even tougher. So going forward, the hard choices, the hard decisions that we're going to have to make with the $1 million that we're using ESSER funds, or $500,000 that we're using ESSER funds to support our budget this year, we know that has to be cut next year, and any other cuts, if for our cost growth that's going to be high, that differential between what our costs are growing versus what our towns are able to support. That's also going to be on top of that $500,000 or whatever it was, the exact number for ESSER. So it will be difficult, and it will continue to be difficult. So I just, the earlier that we can start, and the more we can start with a spirit of collaboration to try to problem solve, as opposed to name calling and finger pointing and shaming, I think is going to make it for a much more productive conversation.
Paul?
So I just want to start by giving deep thanks to Allison and Sarah Bess for going through and representing the school committee and the town throughout these negotiations. It was an arduous, difficult time for you, and I just want to appreciate the work and the level of commitment you made to it. You were representing the school committee, representing the fiscal realities that the entire organization is facing, and I think this seems to be a fair deal. If we have a large percentage of the school committee and hopefully the clearly representatives from the school unions all approved it, so it's a good thing. So thank you for all that work. I think the comments you're making about the constraints on all of our budgets are very real, so I'm glad that those are being identified now. And I guess I have just an informational question, which is, will the school committee be putting out a statement or a summary or anything like that? Is there an expectation for people to have that? And how will the information about this settlement be shared?
Jennifer?
I have questions, but do we want to let someone answer Paul's question first?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead, Allison.
The negotiating team hadn't planned on something, but I think it would be I think it would be worthwhile to have another statement. It wouldn't have to be much different than our last statement describing our last best offer, because things are marginally, we made minor adds to that since that public release. But I think I'd be happy to work with you, Ben, on that if you're interested.
Yep, definitely. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So the way I see it, workers, by which I mean employees and union members, have very little power. They don't have the power to set their salary increases. They don't have the power to insist on the things that they want. What the power that they do have is their collective voice. And I hope that the APEA does continue to use their collective voice, because it's their right. And because that's how the community stays involved. And that's how we, as school committee members, that's one way that we can know what's important to them and what they want. So I hope that they continue speaking loudly and sharing with the community about what's important to them. I think it's a great idea to start earlier. And I think this committee can move that along by, choosing, however it works with us choosing a subcommittee to be the negotiating committee, to do that as soon as we think it's reasonable and as soon as it works for us. I think that's a great idea. As for the deadlines and meeting frequency, I mean, those are things that can be discussed in ground rules with the APEA. And I think that discussing it as part of ground rules is the best way to do it, as opposed to pre-conversations now with the APEA. If somehow someone were to do that, they would not be really bound to adhere to them. But if the two parties together agree to those in ground rules, then the two parties are agreeing to do that. And ground rules take a while to agree on, so even more reason why we should start sooner. Regarding the vote, so we went into executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy about bargaining with APEA, and then we voted. And we are a public body, and the public has a right to know how we voted. So I think at the very least, we should say what the numbers of the votes were. But in addition, I think the public has a right to know who voted how. So if Ben, if you want to, I'm not saying we should take the vote over again, because we're not voting again. But if you wanted to either at some point in this meeting, either read the numbers or read how people voted. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Irv?
Yeah, I guess I second what everyone is saying in relationship to upcoming years. This is something that has been on our radar at the school committee for a large amount of time, that we are going to be facing difficult decisions in the upcoming fiscal year. And I think that what is incumbent upon us is that we start start educating the community, the school community, about what's coming up, and do it in such a way where we're not blaming anyone, but just putting out there the stark reality of what we're about to face. That's a and beyond that, in terms of this meeting, it would be well if we said, all right, we're going to we are going to either vote or on ending this meeting, or either we're going to say, hey, look, here's what we decided in executive session and put that out there. But I guess I'm looking for what's the end here, because I really like you guys, but I really would like to know where we are going here. If we're discussing stuff that's going to be voted on, or are we just discussing stuff that just to be discussing stuff? If we're not going to be voting on anything, the real matter before this committee is to report out on what happened in executive session and what we're going to do going forward.
Duly noted. We'll probably follow the agenda. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, two quick things. I mean, I agree with Jennifer. I hope that the union continues to use its collective voice and speak loudly. I just hope that they choose to do it in a productive way. There's a difference between mocking someone and screaming in someone's face versus expressing yourself loudly. I hope that they join the school committee in strong activism at the State House behind Joe and Mindy and demand that charter school funding that drains more than $3 million of budget from our collective districts and takes union jobs away and is continuing to expand across the state unchecked. I hope they join us with that. You know, that's where we can actually potentially make a long-term difference is in uniting those couple of things. As far as the executive session, I mean, the minutes are going to be public as soon as they're voted. So, you know, the information is there eventually. And I mean, there's no stopping any individual from saying how they voted right now or not. So I'm not sure what the procedural complication is right now.
Thank you. I'll just say that it passed with a vote of 8-1. Jennifer, go ahead.
Regarding what Mr. Dunling said about the minutes of the executive session, the minutes of the executive session will be public. I don't think this body has been very has kept up with making executive session minutes public. So if we are going to make executive session minutes public, I think we have to vote on that. But there's a process for it, which we haven't really followed. So I'm not really convinced that the executive session minutes will be made public automatically.
And I'll take this opportunity to reiterate that the motion passed 8-1. If anybody wants to say how they voted, you can feel free to do that. I don't necessarily see a need to do that right now, but are there any other comment? Hey, Allison.
I just want to clarify that it's not a process that executive session minutes become public. It's a decision that the school committee can make if it so chooses. It's not required to release them to the public. So there is no process that's not being followed right now. Minutes are being taken. We probably do need to review the minutes of past executive sessions because it's been a while, but there's no obligation to release them. The school committee can choose to take a vote to release them to the public.
Are there any other questions, comments, or anything related to the APEA contract vote? I'll take this opportunity to thank Allison, Sarah Bess, and Doug, and everyone that was on the negotiating team for all of your efforts. And I also, regardless of how difficult it's been over the course of the last year and a half, I also want to thank the negotiating team from the APEA, right? Like, I don't think anybody wanted to give up all of this time. And I think it's worth the effort of fighting things out and kind of restores my faith in humanity a little bit. The fact that we actually got through this, it didn't seem like we were going to at certain points. So, all right. Fire away, Irv.
Yeah, I think it would be really, really good if in our public statement, we not only thank the negotiating team from the committee, but also uh, give our appreciation to the APEA.
Thank you for echoing my sentiment. Appreciate that. And what do we have next? So we'll move on to future agenda planning. If nobody else has anything to offer. No, it's good. Future agenda planning. Is there anything we really need to go over regarding that? Tom, go ahead, fire away. And then Allison.
Ben, I have a question. What is the process for a member getting an agenda item onto the agenda for a future meeting?
So during the future agenda planning item on the agenda tonight, that sounds redundant. That you just bring it up now, basically. Or you could email me at any time if you wanted to add like more depth to it or whatever, or more detail.
I did email you a list of items that I would like to see discussed.
Yeah.
And I would also like to see us hold a public hearing on the decision to use artificial turf on the high school track renovation project.
All right, noted. Allison?
I think it would be helpful for us to talk about the meeting calendar for next year, because I think we don't know when our next meeting is. I know that we drafted one that so you and I as chair of the Amherst committee and the chair of the Pelham committee, because we share a superintendent, coordinated on a calendar. So I think it would be helpful to share that so that the committee has awareness, and so potentially we could get these on our calendars sort of long before August. I also want to say, I think, while any committee member can propose an agenda item, that doesn't necessarily mean that every agenda item that any one of us proposes is on the agenda, because I think if all of us have 10 things that we want on the agenda and there's like 55 different agenda items, it would kind of be, there's some amount of discussion. The reason why we bring them, my point is, the reason why we bring it and discuss it here rather than just emailing them is so that other members of the committee can weigh in and think about sort of prioritization for different topics at different times, because we've had a few years now of reasonably length meetings, but that was coming off of multiple years where our meetings were regularly in excess of 4 or 5 hours. So hopefully we can sort of use this time. Future agenda planning is for a collective discussion amongst our colleagues about what we want to see and discuss together as a future, as opposed to just us submitting and sort of throwing things on the agenda.
All right, Peter?
I mean, yeah, I would just quickly round that out by saying that in terms of the agenda process is that, so that all members can, contribute ideas into the agenda forming, but then the chair owns the agenda, right? And so it's up to the chair to sort of compose that from member input. And that if there was no member input whatsoever, we would still have meetings on a regular schedule, and they would still be of a certain length, because there's certain things that have to happen and that certain processes we have to go through, budget, et cetera, and other things that are going to come up, policy and whatnot. And so there's not an infinite amount of time. But, we have, that being said, we can revisit what is currently our modus operandi, which is, trying to stay under 2.5 hours, and voting if we go half an hour, every half an hour beyond that. There are districts that do 6, 7+ hour school committee meetings, way into the night. I don't personally think that's a good way to go, because I don't find our meetings all that efficient. attentive and clarifying after more than a few hours. But that's something to be discussed. I think that the idea of public, we talk about public forums. I think we can come back in the fall. I guess I would be wary, even though it was not a unanimous decision, and I understand people feel different ways about the track. This is a decision that we've made multiple times and have reaffirmed multiple times. So unless there was a specific, uh, path of, I don't know. I guess I would need to understand that a bit more before we just sort of greenlit something like that.
And thanks for the clarity on that. Like when I meant that you could submit it, I didn't mean it's necessarily going to be on and be considered, but yeah, we'll take Jennifer and then Anna.
For the chair's information, I'd like to +1 Tom's idea of having a public forum about the track and field project. And also, while Doug is sharing this document, I wanted to ask if members could be given view access to this document. I have view access to the previous academic calendars, this version of this document. It would be great if we could all see it, just so that we don't have to memorize these dates right now, and we can look at upcoming dates for the rest of the year, for the years to come. Thank you.
Yep. And Anna. Anna?
Sorry, I was muted. Since our next meeting is in August, I was wondering if we need to put on the agenda something about responding to the Title IX investigation or discussing the Title IX investigation. I know that we're supposed to only get information related to the superintendent and not necessarily receive information related to all of the other items, or maybe the superintendent can give a report out of the Title IX investigation at that meeting. I don't know if that's appropriate. Anyway.
It's kind of tough to put it on an agenda when we don't have a
date. Yeah.
For the finalized version. Yeah. But we will at that point meet and discuss it.
Okay.
Tom, go ahead.
So can I get a copy of that document that's being presented, the SC meeting calendar 23-24? I don't think I have it.
Yep, I'm giving folks viewer access as we speak in real time. Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to actually suggest that for the first meeting, that we include goals guidance, FY24 or school year 2024 goals guidance. If we don't have it on that, I know we haven't finished the superintendent evaluation, but regardless of whether we have our permanent superintendent back, whether we have and continue having an interim superintendent, I think we as a school committee can talk about what we want for ourselves and the district to be goals, whether or not they translate right into whether or not we're actually talking about superintendent goals or we're talking about our goals as a district or in a school committee. I think it's important that we start the year and talk about what we want to accomplish, so we have sort of that vision in mind as we go start the year. It can be a guidance document, so that when we do have are in a position to be talking about specific superintendent goals or acting superintendent goals, that at least we have that work already done and it's not December by the time we're voting on goals.
Yep, I agree.
I also think, sorry, subcommittee reorganization was one that I had suggested because the budget subcommittee doesn't have a chair and it can't meet until it has a chair. And I know we have multiple new members, so subcommittee reorganization, please.
Peter?
Sixth grade model in the middle school. Last I recall this conversation, we were going to try and Amherst School Committee, other committee, 5 of us sit on, we're going to try and make a decision about the model, but there are potential implications for this committee as well. And so coordinating with the chair of that committee, who happens to be here, on the agendas, so that that's decided earlier in the year rather than later.
else have any input on agenda planning? Tom?
Ben, is it appropriate for me to send my list of agendas that I shared with you and Doug, to send them to other members of the committee? Or should I let you do that?
I mean, either or. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't think it necessarily crosses any line.
I think
Yeah.
I think the key thing regarding that was just no one should really
Respond.
offer opinion about them,
Yeah.
about the topics. It is, you can talk about agenda on via email with a quorum, but you want to be pretty careful about that. But certainly sharing it's not a problem.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, you can't even I understand what you're saying, Doug, but you can't even debate about the agenda. Like, you couldn't have some conversation with a quorum of the committee saying, this is what I think should be on the agenda and why, and then have somebody reply back and say, no, I don't think that should be on the agenda, here's why. Because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, and I would offer that I can give you some feedback about some of those items, and then we can send it out, or decide not to, or you want to do that. Go ahead, Peter.
Another thing that just occurred to me, because it relates to several of these items that come up. If you're new to the committee, MASC has an excellent number of courses, either in person or virtual. One of them is called Charting the Course, which is like essentially School Committee 101. And they do a really good job of covering a number of these open meeting operations, mechanisms, Robert's rules, agendas and all that, relationship, etc. So if you haven't already, it's a really good resource to avail yourself of.
Yeah. Anna?
So I was looking at charting the course, and all of the courses seem to be quite far away. And I was wondering if any of you have already attended these courses and where you chose to attend them.
Kind of feels like we're deviating from agenda planning here.
Yes.
If
I
somebody wants
agree.
to,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. What I will say is, like, if folks want to go ahead and email off their experience to Anna, that'd be awesome. That'd probably be very helpful for all of the new members if we could do that for them, I think.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yep. Anything else within the margins of agenda planning? All right, so we'll move on to warrant report. Do we have warrants to be read?
We have them, but I'm not prepared to read them at this meeting.
Okay, then we will move on to accepting gifts. I don't see any gifts here. Am I not privy to? Okay, cool. Yep. So we don't have that. So now I will take a motion. Anybody want to, or I'll just go ahead and move to adjourn.
Second?
Yep. Moved by me, seconded by Tom. Roll call vote. Sarah Bess?
Sarah, sorry.
Tillman?
Tillman, I.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, I.
Allison?
Allison, I.
Tom?
Tom, aye.
Peter?
Peter, I.
Anna?
Anna, I.
Irv?
Irv, aye.
And Ben, I. The motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.